Hi, my name's Tracy. I'm a chef here at Hy-Vee Waterfront. Been cooking for over 30 to 35 years. Previously, before Iowa City, I was in New Orleans, Kansas City, as well as Atlanta. There's so many delicious foods out there and so many ways to make them Larapin. Larapin is a southern expression used to describe excellent food. And in this series, I will share my knowledge and some great recipes that will not only improve your skills in the kitchen, but also expand your knowledge of the foods you eat. Welcome to Larapin Cooking with Chef Tracy. Hi, I'm Chef Tracy. I'm going to be showing you how to make two soups today. One is going to be a classic gumbo made with roast chicken and andouille sausage, as well as a strawberry apple soup. Very similar to a smoothie, if you like to call it that, but today we're going to call it a strawberry apple soup. So once you start this process, you can't stop. So you want to make sure you have everything in front of you ready to go. I have my rubber spatula. You want to use a oven-safe rubber spatula. I have all my peppers, onions, and celery ready to go, my garlic, my seasonings. Have that set ready to go. You don't want to be running around once you start this. I have some regular all-purpose flour here. Make sure that your whip is dry. You don't want any water in this whatsoever. I have a nice cast iron skillet. You could also do it in another pot. The cast iron is going to be a little bit more even cooking, and it'll get a little bit hotter. The process of making a brown roux is kind of dangerous. This is why I wanted to go ahead and demonstrate how to do it. It's not something I could just give a recipe out for, so here we go. You got your light haze form. Just start sprinkling in my flour. You see it's going to boil up and it's going to start to brown rather quickly. Once you get a nice color brown, you'll add your next tablespoon in. You don't want to add too much because it's going to bubble up. But you're going to get a really nice almond smell to this, toasted almond smell. And that's just the flour toasting in the oil itself. And at this point, you don't want to stop stirring. You want to make sure you're hitting all the sides of the pan. That's why you have a nice balloon whisk, so it's not going to get stuck in the corners. The ratio that you're looking for, like any roux, you're going to go equal amounts of fat to flour. And in the recipe you'll see the flour and the oil will be the same. You don't want to use any olive oil in this. It's not going to have a high enough smoking point, or it's got a very low smoking point and it won't have the right flavor. So you want to use a neutral flavor, so canola, vegetable oil. At this point you don't want to stop stirring. You want to transfer to your spatula. You want to scrape the sides so you don't get any burnt. You see it's still a little bit soupy. It will tighten up a tad. The other advantage of the cast iron, if it's well seasoned, you won't have anything sticking to the bottom. If it isn't seasoned, it'll stick and you'll get that one little spot that'll burn. So you kind of see where you're at consistency-wise. I'm just going to add a little bit more. The farther south you go, as in Louisiana, you'd almost want the roux to be the color of this cast iron. Whereas I found that's a little bit strong of a flavor for the gumbos that I've made here in Iowa. So I kind of lighten it up a little bit. As with the seasonings that you would have in Louisiana, you don't necessarily want to have them in Iowa because they're going to be a little bit too salty and a little bit too spicy. So at this point, I think I get the right color and the right consistency. I'm going to turn my heat off. Now you're going to see how hot this really is. It doesn't look like it's at that hot right now. But here I have my celery, onions, and peppers that I'm going to add right into the roux. It's going to flavor your roux, and it's also going to cool it down. So you just want to put that in there, and you can see that the vegetables are going to cook right into the roux. The other item you want to add, chopped garlic. Minced garlic, you're going to add that in there. That's, once again, that's going to flavor the roux as well. You're developing flavors with your gumbo here, and this is the base of any The Dark Roux is the base of any good gumbo. If you don't start off with something, a good base, you're not going to go ahead and end up with a good soup. I have Creole seasoning. You're going to season that. You're going to add that to the roux once again to season it. And once everything's incorporated, we're going to let this cool, and then we'll go on to the next step of making the soup itself. So now we're going to take and start adding a couple more garnishes to the soup itself. We have our roux ready to go, which has been cooled down. I'm going to start with, once again, the same pan. We have nice and hot, a little bit of oils in the bottom. We're going to take Andouille sausage, which is a Creole sausage, which comes from the pork shoulder. It's a larger cut, a little bit more chunky than you would have normal sausage, Creole seasoned and smoked. We're going to take that, we want to put it into a hot pan. What we're doing here is, once again, we're developing more and more flavor to this gumbo as we go. So from the outset, we're going to season again. Everything that we're going to put in here, we're going to season. You get a touch of brown, and this is going to render some of the fat. There's not a lot of fat in andouille. It's a little bit less than what you see in other sausages just because of the larger cuts that you have that are piped into the casing itself. I'm going to add half the chicken, and we'll add the rest of the chicken at the end. You want to keep the chicken somewhat nice and chunky. It adds for a nice, better textured soup. We're going to season the chicken. Let that mix in with the sausage, as far as the fat from the sausage. I'm just going to add a spoonful of garlic as well. Now the garlic will get a little bit of toast, so you get some more of that nutty flavor that we had with the roux itself. Since your pan's so hot, it should go pretty quick. And all I have here is a chicken broth, a basic chicken broth that I'm going to add to that. You want to do it just a little bit above where your meat and sausage are. So now we have our stock boiling, chicken stock with the andouille and the roasted chicken. We have our roux here. We're going to go ahead and add small amounts of roux at a time, just enough to, it's going to thicken the soup. But if you add it all at once, you're going to have a tendency of it wanting to lump up on you. So you just find the roux, break it up into the stock itself. And it's a process. You want it to come back to a boil so you can see where the consistency is. If it's too thick, not thick enough. You see all the roux is cooked out. You want to make sure there's no lumps in there. And you can see it's starting to thicken up just a little bit. I'm going to add some more roux. The key part of making any roux-based soup is you have a cold roux and a hot stock, or you have a hot roux and a cold stock. If you try to combine, unless you've cooked for many years, you try to combine the two, you're going to get small little flour globules, I guess we can call them, that won't cook out and aren't very tasty. Once again, in building with the flavors, I'm going to be tasting it just to see where I'm at, if I need to season it as I go. Gonna add just a little more Creole seasoning to it. Like many soups, this will be good when it comes out, but if you let it sit overnight and then heat it up, for some reason the flavors are going to change completely, and it's going to have, it'll taste still like gumbo, but it'll have a lot different flavor to it. A lot more full flavor to it, with all the flavors melding overnight. So you see the consistency, it's still a little bit too loose. So I'm just gonna have one more spoonful of the roux. And if you do have extra roux, don't worry about it, use it next time. You can put it into a baggie, pop it in the freezer, and it's gonna somewhat last indefinitely. And then just pull it out the day before you wanna make gumbo again. So I'm gonna turn this down and let the roux cook out. What I mean when I say let the roux cook out, when you taste it, go ahead and you're gonna let it coat your mouth, and you're gonna feel a chalkiness on your teeth and your tongue. That's the roux that's not cooked out yet. What I mean by cooked out, it's gonna thicken it a little bit more, and then when you taste it, the next time, it won't have any chalky flavor to it. So you wanna let it cook for about 10-15 minutes. Now I'm gonna add the last of the chicken. You wanna turn your heat down a little bit. I have a nice consistency to it. Nice soup consistency, you can see. And that's your gumbo. I'm just gonna add the last of the chicken. I'm gonna put the lid on, let it cook for about another 10 to 15 minutes. Nice and easy. Take the lid off so it's gonna go, I leave the lid a little bit ajar, just go ahead and let some of the more of the liquid out. So now we've let it sit for about 10 minutes. What you wanna do is we wanna taste it one more time. I can't stress enough about whatever you're making, before you serve it to your guests, you wanna taste it one more time, just to make sure it's right. The roux is cooked out, and we're ready to go ahead and serve. So you wanna get those chunks on in the bowl. Some purists would say that you have to serve it with rice, and there's nothing right or wrong. If you want to serve it with rice, go right ahead. I just like the soup itself. I'm going to go ahead and garnish it just with some green onions all around. That's just going to kind of brighten up that onion flavor. And then if you have guests that don't like spicy or that do like spicy, it's kind of fun. Just go ahead and put a little rim of the Creole seasoning around the plate. And here you go. You have chicken and andouille sausage gumbo with a garnish of some sliced green onions and a little bit of Creole seasoning. Enjoy. We're going to do a couple tricks of the trade here. I'm going to start off with proper method in sharpening a knife. Number one, if you don't have a knife that has an edge, all you want to do is hone the edge. That's what this is for. This is a sharpening steel. If your knife isn't sharp, the sharpening steel will not go ahead and sharpen your knife. You need to have a sharp knife to start. All it's going to do is hone the edge. So this looks like it's going to cut me, but it's not going to cut me, okay? There's a guard on the steel that prevents it from coming down and cutting me. You'll see a lot of people, which scares me, sharpening their knives like this. They make it look all nice and everything. It's very dangerous to anybody that's going to be right in front of you, okay? The way I was taught years and years ago at school, you start base of your knife right here at the top of the steel. You come down a little bit. You want to be able to fit a quarter. Hold a quarter with your knife against the steel. And all you're doing is moving your wrist. You're not moving anything else. You can see just my wrist is moving, and I'm just going down the steel, and I'm keeping the same angle each time that I do that. Now this is a large knife. Just go ahead and kind of over-exaggerate what I'm doing here. I've already done this 5 times too many. You want to do it 5 times, and your knife should be sharp. If you have to do it more than 5 times, you want to get your knife sharpened by a professional on a stone. Same thing with a paring knife. My wrist is moving and nothing else. The steel stays still. Now, that's how I was taught many years ago at schools. I still haven't mastered it, but the way it's taught now at school for safety reasons, once again, is start with the base of your knife at the top of the steel. And I haven't, like I said, I haven't mastered this one yet, so that's why I do it the other way. But once again, it's for safety reasons, so you don't cut your hands. But this, once again, has a safety notch at the end there, but you're just turning it against the steel each time. Same thing with a paring knife. You just want to turn it backwards. But it takes a little bit of practice to get the angles proper, but you'll see the way I test my knives, if they'll go ahead and take a little bit off my fingernail, I know it's going to be sharp enough. If it doesn't take off the fingernail, then I have to go ahead and get it sharp. One of the tricks of the trade is how to properly brunoise a shallot, which will lead on to how to properly dice an onion. A shallot is used just like an onion, but it's got a lot sweeter flavor. Used mainly in sauces. You'll see it fried sometimes as a garnish on top of salads. I have a nice sharp paring knife, and I'm just going to go ahead and start by cleaning the shallot first. Treat this, think of an onion as I'm doing this as well. I'm not cutting the tops off, okay? I'm going to go ahead and cut through the root itself and up through the sprout. Open it up like that. I'm going to do it once again. I'm going to cut through the root and then through the sprout. I'm going to lay that cut side down. I'm going to come over and I'm going to take the tops off. Take the top. I'm going to leave just a small amount of the root intact in the bottom, as you can see right here. You'll see why later. Now this makes it a lot, by cutting them in half first, it's going to make it a lot easier to go ahead and take the peel off. And you're going to use a lot less of the onion or the shallot as we're using right here. So you get a little bit better yield on your onion or shallot. You can see, I'm going to cut that part out. When you're doing in commercial food service, when you're going ahead and you have to peel 50 pounds of shallots a day, by doing it this way, you're going to go ahead and save a lot of money. Dicing onions, everybody says, well, how do you dice them and you don't cry? The only reason you're going to cry is if your knife is dull. The reason being, your knife is going to crush the onion instead of properly slicing it. And that goes ahead and sends the sulfur into the air. And don't put a match in your mouth. I've been tricked in putting a match in my mouth saying it'll stop you from crying. So I got 3 matches in my mouth after my 50th pound of onions, and it still didn't work. So I had a dull knife and I had to sharpen my knife is all I had to do. So what we're gonna do, we have them all cut in half. Cut side's gonna go down. We're gonna make small slices straight down the onion or the shallot, as we have here. And some people will go ahead and cut it that way. Depending on what you're doing, if you want to go that far, you can go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to go ahead and slice them all down. You can see why I left the root end on. It's going to hold the rest of the shallot together. I'm cutting towards the sprout end, if you want to call it that. So you find the root end, which is right here. I'm going to cut away from the root. Depending on how big you want your onions or shallots, is how big you're going to make these first cuts. So the bigger you want it, the wider the cuts are going to be on the shallot or the onion. Then you're going to take your shallot, you want it very thin. And it works the same as it would for an onion. When you get down here, we're going to dice it up later. If you have a lot of the root left, you don't necessarily want that, so you can discard it. There you go, the diced shallots, which work the same as an onion. Get them all diced, ready to go. That's it. I'm Chef Tracy, and that's the trick of the day. Now to finish up, I'm going to show you how to make a very simple strawberry apple soup. What we're making next is going to be, so you can see, strawberry apple soup. We have simple 5 ingredients of some local honey, some local cider, some vanilla yogurt, nice fresh strawberries, and a monster apple. It's about the biggest apple I think I've ever seen. It's a Fuji apple, and I figure why not for strawberry apple soup? Might as well go ahead and do that. This could be a soup, it could be a smoothie, it could be a dessert, however you want to look at it. I'm just going to start off with just a couple little tips as far as the strawberry goes. Now, most people will go ahead and take a strawberry and they want to cut the tip off like that and they say it's clean, ready to go. I'm going to do a couple of them like that. And this is still all edible around the sides there. You'll see a lot of people doing that. I recommend, what's wrong with just using a spoon and just taking the green part out? I'll do 2 of those side by side. Now if you're paying for your strawberries, this part here, left on the strawberry, then that. So I'm going to go ahead and hull all the strawberries out. We're going to pretty much put all the ingredients together and puree them with I call it a burr mixer. Immersion blender is another name for it. You see, all I'm doing, I'm just going up under the green, I'm just pulling the green part out. You still have all that nice strawberry in there. And it goes a lot quicker than, I think, using a cutting board or trying to find a knife to do. You just grab a spoon out of the drawer and you're ready to go. Now we're going to go ahead and do the apple. Seeing that this is a huge apple, just a quick, we're going to peel the apple first. And all I'm doing, you can see my knife isn't moving. I'm moving the apple around my knife. This way I'm not going to cut my thumb that's underneath there. I'm just going to keep on, as long as you have a sharp paring knife, just moving the apple around the knife and just taking a very thin slice off of that. It always seems like such a waste, so with all the peel sitting on the cutting board, so if you want to get ever so inventive, you can go ahead and chop these up a little bit. If you want to fry them off, and while they're still hot, just sprinkle them with a touch of cinnamon sugar. Makes a nice little snack and a nice little treat. Once you have your apple peeled, you're going to go in with your paring knife, you're going to cut down, and then you're going to act like you're making a wedge. Then you can just take your paring knife and pop it out like that. Once again, you're making a wedge, and all I'm doing is twisting the paring knife. It's going to leave all the seed in the center. You're not going all the way through, so you can get a little bit of skin there. You're not going all the way through that. Now, I'm just going to take it and finish off the apple. If you have a little, this is all going to get pureed, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But this is a nice, simple way of wedging your apples out if you're making pies. And then your last one, you're just going to go ahead and cut off. You can see you have a large amount on the bottom. You just want to trim that down as well. Now your apple and strawberry is ready. Now we're going to go with the apple cider. Make sure you shake it up. You don't need a whole bunch of this. The strawberries are going to make a large amount of juice. You just want enough to help the blender get started and of course flavor the soup. And the honey. This will be your natural sweetener if the strawberries aren't sweet enough as it is. And I'm just going to add enough vanilla yogurt About a quarter cup, half a cup. Now the fun part is working with the immersion blender here and getting the process started without getting splattered with strawberries. So you want to bury that down. If you have a blender at home, use a blender. Make sure you have the lid on. If you have a food processor, you can use that. This, I'm just going to start it very slowly. Get my strawberries done and get that liquid going. Now you can see the apples are starting to come into. At this point, you want to find the apple and let the blender grind it up. This soup makes a really nice spring, summer. This could be perfect for dessert. Like I said, it's very versatile. We're calling it a soup today since the subject is soups. But if you want to call it a smoothie, I'm not going to go ahead and be upset with that. So now I have it all pureed together. I'm going to give it a taste. And this is completely up to you. If you want it sweeter, I like it as it is right now because I can taste the apples. I taste the strawberries, but it's got its own flavor going all the way through. Not one is overpowering before the other. As in making soups, you want everything to meld together and have one flavor instead of tasting only strawberries and then tasting the apples. But this has a nice flavor all the way through. The only thing that I perhaps might add, just for a little bit more of a mouthfeel, is some yogurt, the dairy aspect. Just add a touch more. By adding the dairy product, it'll coat your mouth so you get a little bit better flavor. So here's our pureed soup, the strawberry apple soup. What you want to do is we're going to ladle that into the bowl. Then for a nice garnish, I have some diced both red and green apples here, some Brunoise red and green apples. You float them on the top. A couple more. And I'm just going to lay 3 slices of strawberry straight across top of the soup. And here you go, strawberry apple soup. Thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something from this and you get to try some of these different dishes that I showed you today, and hope all your food is Larapin. Thank you for watching Larapin Cooking with Chef Tracy on PATV, Iowa City, Channel 18.